Hey, I'm Susanna Lanier, actor and acting coach for over 25 years.
I'm Jess Greenberg, casting director for over 10 years.
We're here to help you navigate this crazy, creative, and sometimes chaotic journey into the film and television world.
We share our insights as to what works.
And invite some pretty spectacular guests to share more ideas to move you on your journey.
So without further ado, let's get into the show.
So today we have the pleasure of speaking with one of our favorite acting couples, Julia Borsellino and Sean Colby. Welcome.
Hello.
Woo! Hi.
Hi, Samantha. Hi, Jess. So
Hi. You too.
This is a podcast.
Yeah. And thank you for being here and taking the time to chat with us.
No, for sure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So generally how we start is we want to know a bit of your origin story. So specifically how you got into acting and what other sort of things that you do as well, I guess, jobs, things like that.
You want to start?
Yeah. Wow. Got into acting. That's like, it feels like so long ago.
Your origin story.
Yeah. So I got into acting in high school, and I'm turning 30, so that's a while ago. But my sister, she's 3 years older than me, and she was in all the school plays, and she was in improv. And in Canada, right? There's this thing. There's the Canadian Improv Games. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but it's basically high schools compete against each other doing improv.
Whoa. So cool.
Actually never heard of this.
Yeah,
this
it's
like
really cool.
Before Glee. It was improv.
It was happening around the same time as Glee, basically.
Okay.
Wow.
And so my sister was a part of that, and I really looked up to my sister, and I just wanted to do everything she did, and so that's why I got into acting. I started with improv and the improv games, and then I went into the theater program. Well, the theater program at my high school was basically, instead of doing English class, we did a play every year. And so I, wasn't writing much essays, but I was learning lines and acting on stage.
Amazing.
And that's kind of how I started. And I just, from there, just went to theater school and just kept doing it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like the first like memory I have of like, oh, an actor, like I didn't know that was like an actual career or that people did that. But I remember it must have been like grade 2 or grade 3 or something like that, and we had to talk to the class about what we wanted to be when we were older. And I was, I guess, watching a lot of CSI. I guess my parents were watching a lot of CSI.
Oh my
and I was
goodness.
like, I want to be like one of those CSI people, like a crime scene investigator. I want to like investigate, I guess, murders and crime. And then someone in the class, another student, like raised their hand and was like, I guess there was a question period after, and they were like, so do you really want to be as like a CSI, or do you want to be an actor, like the actors on the show playing all these characters? And I was like, oh, like I never thought about that. And yeah, I was always really shy when I was a little kid. I guess like in end of elementary school, like beginning of high school, I didn't really like to go up in front of people and perform. Was like the most terrifying thing in my mind. And it was really only at the end, but I was always like, I want to do this, but I just didn't know maybe how, and I didn't know how to get into it. And it was like the last 2 years of high school that I started getting involved with like the school play. I went to like a very like math and science heavy school, and we didn't really have like art classes or drama, but there was like an after school drama thing. So I started doing that. And then I just decided to, go to theater school, which I'm sure my parents were like, what do you do with like a theater degree? But they supported me ultimately. And now we're in Toronto and we're auditioning and we're doing this. But I also like work other jobs as well, as you have to be sustainable as an actor in Canada. And so I work right now a lot in like web design and I guess web development and helping companies with like their digital strategy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I want to ask, so Julia, are you still like interested in playing CSI characters? Like, would those be your favorite when you go for like a detective or something like that? Is that like, oh my God, this is like...
I think that would be cool. I don't know if it's like my like top. I don't know what my top. I feel like at this point, I'm like at this point where I'm like, I would love to play anything and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Everything. But I think like those shows are interesting in the sense that they're like kind of they're like funny, but like not overly funny, but there is like a humor to them, and
Mm.
they're like procedural, and I think it would be a nice challenge to be on something like that. And I mean, just to be on something that's so long running, that I think that
Oh
is
my God.
That's
Yeah.
that's what every actor is looking for.
The
Law and
recurring
Order,
role.
NCIS, you know,
Yeah.
NCIS Hawaii, that'd be
Something-
great.
Something
Runs, yeah, something that runs for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Having like worked in both cities, Montreal, Toronto, why did you guys move to Toronto, and what are like the differences you see in terms of the opportunities, maybe
Yeah.
even the audition process, the and maybe agents, like how are they different? Because I believe you have both cities, agents in both cities. So
So we're no longer with we don't no longer have our agent in Montreal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're just in Toronto, and I don't know, like, why did we move?
I think that
you always wanted to come to Toronto.
Yeah, I've always wanted to come to Toronto, and I've had an agent in Toronto for a few years before I even moved here.
Yeah.
So I was going back and forth. Like I would take a bus, go do an audition, and come back, and that killed me because that's 6 hours each
That's so
way. It was
tiring.
very tiring, and like dropping everything to go to Toronto, do an audition, and come back.
You would sleep on a friend's couch.
Yeah,
like
it was a lot of friends that were letting
it
me
was a
stay on their
hustle.
couch. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, especially in the English industry, because of course in Montreal, right, there's the French,
French side,
the-
which is booming.
yeah. There's more work here in English. It's just what it is, right? It's just a bigger market in that sense. And yeah, if you feel like it might give you a better chance because there might be more opportunity here, but at the same time there's more competition. So it's yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like a major difference between
Mhm.
Montreal and Toronto. Whereas in like Montreal, I find like the casting director community is on the English side is a lot smaller. I think there's like 3 or 4, major English casting directors, and like I feel like they're very open to seeing everyone in the city. There's a lot less English actors in the city, so there's a smaller pool, I guess, of actors to see. But in Toronto, there's like 12 to I don't know how many there are, really 15 more if you count all the commercial casting directors. Some are more prominent than others, but and some cast bigger projects than others. But like they're I find it's a lot more closed off to seeing actors. Like for example, there's one in particular that I'm thinking of. I did a casting director workshop with her, and she's great, but their model hasn't changed since before the pandemic. Like a lot of casting directors opened their doors and started seeing more people in Toronto because they were able to get videos. So they were able to just watch more instead of, having a certain amount of people in the room. And this casting director was like, nope, we do Zoom. We don't take self-tapes. And we still see, before we saw 12 actors for a role, unless they're like casting a lead. She's like, we'll see like more, but we're only going to bring in 12 actors for this, actor role or for this principal role. So I understand in a sense, I like, why would you bring in somebody that you don't know, you don't have a relationship with, when you can bring in, your 12 actors that are perfect for the role and that are gonna, like, one of them is definitely gonna like wow the directors, but all of them are gonna wow the directors, you know what I mean? So I think it's a bit difficult in that sense. It feels like there's more, I don't want to call it gatekeeping, because like I understand why it's in place. It's just different in that sense. Whereas I feel like in Montreal, like maybe the community is I don't want to say more welcoming, but like more welcoming in terms of if you're a new actor, or if you're an actor with like maybe not so many credits, or even if I guess you're non-union. Whereas in Toronto, if you're non-union, it's very hard to get like that first union credit, and it can take a decade for you to, like, it's very, like, a lot of casting directors won't even see you unless you're specifically going for like a non-union project or stuff like that. So I feel like it was easier to kind of build a base in Montreal. Like I don't regret moving to Toronto later, because we've only been here, I guess, for 3 years now.
Yeah.
2 of them being a pandemic.
Yeah. So that made it very interesting.
Wow,
I've never
okay.
auditioned in the room in Toronto, which is interesting.
Okay.
Only for commercial auditions, because I started doing those before I guess everything hit. But I haven't I haven't gone in the room for any of the casting directors here. I've only sent in like self tapes.
Honestly, it's better.
Probably.
I'm much. I mean, what actors
Doesn't like a self tape.
don't like self tapes
Some
better?
actors don't like self tapes.
Well, I
A
find
lot of actors don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot
uh,
of actors don't. They want that. They want to see the casting director. They want the energy. They want,
yes.
but yeah, I mean, it goes both.
Yeah.
Listen, but Sean, you're also very experienced and you're confident in what you're
Yes.
doing. Then, and
Yes.
also, they want to meet the casting directors to get that, so they could keep being welcomed back in the room.
For sure.
Once you can
I
make
find
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find like the big difference in Toronto though, compared to Montreal casting directors is that you'll get one take.
Mhm.
Wow.
Very rarely do you get a second take when you go into a room. And so, you have a 7-page scene or whatever it is. It's like you better know your lines. You better go in there. You better be prepared because you're only going to get one shot at it.
And that's even if it's just the casting director or it's when the producers are there too.
That's the casting director.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's like you got to be going in there ready to go.
They're
and that's
not fooling around. Wow.
no. And like
Take,
you might
7
get a
pages.
you might get a second take, but I don't know. A lot of the time you don't. So like you need to have the mentality like you're only going to get one shot at this. And that's one of the biggest difference from coming to Montreal to Toronto. Montreal, I find the casting directors are very, open to doing multiple takes and
We're too nice.
very nice.
Very nice, which is great. Never change, Jess. It's great. I think about like you. I think about like Randy. I think about like Kate from Bruno Rosado, and I'm like, oh, such angels, all of them.
So yeah, I know. Yeah. Wow.
But like also just in terms of like projects, the interesting thing that I like about Toronto now, I guess where I am now in my career, is that there's a lot of MOWs that happen in Toronto. There's a lot of companies in Ottawa and Hamilton. Like they produce, some companies like produce like 20 to 25 MOWs a year.
Yeah.
And so they're always looking for actors. And I find like a lot of the time they're looking for, you have to pay your tax because it's always low budget, right? So you have to pay your taxes in Ontario. You have to be either a resident of Toronto or a resident of Ontario. And I find these projects are just like great training grounds for like, having a lead role in something, or just like having a character that has like some sort of an arc, or just being on set for like multiple days. I don't want to say it's low pressure. There's still a lot of pressure, but it's like lower pressure, to practice on like maybe a set like that. That's happening over 12 days than it is to, get like a big part on like, I don't know, Alert or Transplant or a Hollywood film. And then you're like, but I feel so green. I don't know what to do. And then it's like, well, you have to go and do it. So I think that's kind of like an interesting thing in Ontario that that maybe there's not so much of in Montreal, because I know Incendo does movies in Montreal. I know sometimes Ottawa, some of the production companies, they'll take actors from Montreal if they don't need that tax credit. But I just feel like there's a lot more of those happening in Toronto right now, especially throughout the pandemic. I think that industry just kind of blew up.
Yeah, like now, like it used to just be like Christmas movies, but now they're like capitalizing on every holiday, like Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, any day there is a movie for it.
Yeah.
And we like it.
People are watching it. People love it. Gotta give people what they want.
I don't know if you had any specific questions about Montreal, Toronto. I know there's just like so much that
Yeah, no, I'm curious. Like, I mean, I'm an advocate for our city. I think, our talent here is amazing. A lot of people that are great do move because I understand the opportunity. Like there's just more, and there's still the ability to come and work in Montreal. You know what I mean? If you're in Toronto. So like, I get it. But I just wish we had more actors and more projects here, because I know we have talented people here. So it hurts me when I lose.
I agree. And I think that's like one of the most frustrating things about Montreal. It's a small market, but the actors there are great. And I don't know. I remember like you were working on a project as like maybe a reader or something like that. And like it was it was a project where I don't know if he was Canadian or if he was American, the director, and he was saying, wow, like the talent here is really
Oh,
great.
yeah.
And like he didn't, not that he didn't think it would be, but I just feel like sometimes there's a disconnect too between like people don't understand Montreal. They don't understand that people speak English in Montreal. And like I'm in
Yeah.
Toronto and I still get that. They're like, you're from Montreal, but you're French. And I'm like, no. And then you have to explain the whole like, French Anglo thing. And like people just don't understand. So I just feel like people are like, why am I going to go to Montreal? The actors are all going to have French actors, French accents or whatever, which is fine. But I think people don't understand Montreal as like an acting market, and it is sad because it's full of like the most wonderful, supportive, talented community. And
Yeah.
like I agree, like I wish more projects. I wish there was more opportunity there.
Yeah, there's some really great actors in Montreal. And honestly, I wouldn't be the actor I am now if I didn't start in Montreal.
Yeah, I agree.
I think about that a lot because, right out of theater school, we know some people that just came to Toronto right away. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I think both options work. It's like, but what's better for you? Is staying
so
is staying in
personal.
Montreal
Yeah.
and getting all these opportunities and building your resume, building your demo reel, building your confidence. That's a great thing you could do.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe going to Toronto if you want to do that. It's fine if you want to stay in Montreal as well. I think you
I
don't need to
think
do
you have to think about like lifestyle as well.
Mhm.
Like, and because you have to like live a life as well. Like you're a person outside of being an actor, and it's a lot easier to be an artist and live in Montreal. I know rents are rising, across Canada, and I know there's there's problems with that in Montreal as well. But it's a lot easier to be an artist and like live a good life in Montreal and like raise a family than it is to be in Toronto and and
Street
do the same
fortune.
thing. I'm like we're turning 30. We're like, can we have one child? Where will we put this child in our 1-bedroom condo? How do we get a 2-bedroom condo? Like those are the questions that I'm like, I don't know how people do it in Toronto sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's just like, the just Toronto in general, not just in acting, the opportunity in Toronto in all fields, just the money. There's more money, so that drives the prices up, and it's hard. Some people come to Toronto and then they leave after a few years because they're like, why did I leave? I was able to, have a better life in Montreal. People are miserable in Toronto as well. So I feel like if you're thinking about it, like you should try it. You might love it. We love it. Or you might hate it and go back to Montreal. And I think there's no right or wrong. It's just like all personal, right? And based on like what you need in your life.
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
about, I want to ask the energy. What about the energy, like Montreal energy? Because I've lived in Toronto too. Montreal energy versus Toronto energy.
I think in Toronto, just because of how expensive it is to live here, there's a real hustler grinding mentality that just doesn't exist in Montreal. Because you can live like a king or a queen in Montreal off your art a lot easier than you can in Toronto. Like you need to be like just continuously driving forward, and not just with the acting, but with how you're going to pay your rent, right? Or how are you going to like pay for your life. And so I find there's that exists more. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
That's what, I think it depends on the person, but that's what
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
No.
I'm starting to think it's not a bad thing because I think Montreal does have a lot of talent. We are a small talent pool. That's what every time like Jess and Rosina was on, all the casting directors, it's, a small pool, but talented people. But we do have, I see it in my classes, I see it in myself. Our energy is not the same. We don't have that same, like, we're going to crush it. We're getting it. We're, like this energy of here we come, that drive. We have, I think part of it is great for artistic discovery, but which we talked about before, it's acting is a business. It's a business. And it's hard. I still don't get it because I'm all about warm and fuzzy. let's do nice things and create. And that's how I love it. But if you want to work, it's a business, right? And I think Toronto's got that. And I think we're learning it now because we realize how many people are going out for self-tapes. We're not having 10 people in the room anymore. It's everybody who's willing to work as a local is going to get their self-tape in, and they're doing it on time. They're prepared. They're kicking butt, So yeah, I just wanted to know what you guys felt about that.
Well, I think also like to speak on that, I think like you do feel that, you do get that sense, like I've done like I guess a lot of casting directors over the last year just to try to, meet casting directors and like get to know them and like what they prefer and stuff like that. And yeah, there's no fooling around. And not to say that in Montreal you can fool around either, but there's like it makes me nervous sometimes because I'm like it's kind of cutthroat in a sense. And even agents, like they're just like, whereas in I don't want to say like agents in Montreal will just represent you because you're an actor, because that's not true at all. But I just feel like in Toronto they're very it's very calculated, and you can have a great resume, and you can be a great actor, and you can be a great package, but they're like, I have an actor who you're going to compete against, so I cannot have you on the list because you are too close to like this actor and this, like they already have my full attention, like they just won't take you on.
Yeah, it's just harder to get an agent in Toronto. That's just the truth, right?
Sure.
There's just more actors.
Well, it's more competitive. It's all relative, right? Like even here, there's not even a lot of agents, so there's more actors even that are like hungry to get agents, and there's so.
I think about every year, how many actors are coming out of theater school or film school, and it just keeps like piling on, all right, more actors, let's go. It's like how many actors can an agent take on before it's like too much, right?
Yeah, because I think not all actors understand the investment it takes to get an actor like up and running and to figure out the plan and what they're going to go after and all of it. And actors just think like, yeah, it could work. I'll make you money and it will all be great. And, and it's just like, it's not like that.
Your approach to auditions in Montreal, is it different than your approach to Toronto? Like, how has it changed? Has stuff shifted for you?
Yeah, I don't know if anything. Yeah, I think was the question about the self-tape or just auditions? Sorry.
Well, this is why the question is a little bit challenging, because you guys moved like COVID time. So we moved into a self-tape world. So everything changed anyways. So it was not a real specific, how do you approach? But you kind of did touch on it with saying, if you do get in the room, it's one take. So and I guess you prepare for that. But did you prepare for that in Montreal too, that you might only be getting one take? Like, were you ready to go in?
No, I knew I'd get more. Right?
No, and you were like, the first
Jess is like, I'll be cutting.
Like Rosina said, it's like a workshop. When you come in, like, we're working with you. We're
exactly, and it's such a lovely collaboration. Yeah. If I would go into the room in Toronto right now, you bet that I would be practicing on self-tape like like 2 nights before going, so I know exactly how it looks on camera, on frame, what I'm kind of doing, and then so I can let that go, not worry about that, and then just be in the moment. So that first take in the casting director's office would be like a good take that doesn't need a warm up before like figuring out stuff with the framing or anything. Yeah. I guess that would be the difference. I think I'd say too that one major difference I noticed with Toronto, and that sometimes it does burn me out, is in terms of auditioning, is just the amount of commercial auditions you can get. Toronto versus Montreal. Like sometimes, I mean, I know this year has been kind of weird because of like the NCA agreement and the lockout and everything, so it's kind of different. But I feel like last year, I don't know how many commercial auditions I had, but it was like sometimes you have like 3 in a week.
So there's a difference between Montreal and Toronto for some, especially the commercials. But I wanted to ask you about the projects. Do you find the projects in Toronto, because I mean, when I look at what's shooting in Montreal, you have like 2 things, and then just like what's shooting in Toronto, and there's like Pages, and there's Amazon Prime and Netflix. And is it more exciting to be there with those kind of opportunities and projects?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I feel like for you,
I think there's really cool opportunities, but at the same time, how we were talking about how Montreal to Toronto, and then there's probably this stigma that like, oh, Toronto actors are better than Montreal actors. Well, it's the same thing when you go, oh, well, LA actors are better than Toronto actors. And so it's just a never ending cycle.
It never ends.
Yeah.
and so
it's not true. They're just different. And like, it's like, of course. LA looks at Toronto like, oh, Toronto. And like, yeah.
Exactly. And so even when you're getting these big opportunities, it's like, well, you're going up against all these LA actors, right? So it's never ending. Nothing gets easier. Let's just say
Right.
that.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
that's good to know because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people see, like, I look at what's shooting in Montreal and then what's shooting in Toronto, and you're like, oh, am I missing out on like all these opportunities? But then you actually go there,
Mhm.
and it's hard.
For
It's
sure.
really hard.
Hard to get
Like,
those opportunities because I've been here. Well, you've been doing this longer for me. A lot of the casting directors, I guess,
Mhm.
know you or getting to, but there's still casting directors that don't see you.
Yeah, there's so many casting directors here. There's some that don't see me very often. There's some that see me a lot, right? That I've built a better relationship with, I
And I'm like
guess.
still
But,
trying to build those relationships right
mhm.
now. And like I just like switched agencies recently. So now it's like I feel like not that I'm starting over, but a little bit starting over because that agent
Mm-hmm.
has to get to know you and there's that whole process. But like I just like I'm so anxious to get those opportunities. And I can't wait for that day, but they're not here yet for me. The majority of the time, like I'm auditioning for like movies of the weeks and stuff like that, which is fine. But there are so many. I'm like, why? I want to audition for Murdoch Mysteries. I want to audition for Coroner, like all these great projects, and I know one
Yeah.
day will happen. It
Yeah.
takes time. Everything takes time,
Mhm.
and just like in any career, like time and relationship and
Yeah.
money, because you have to keep going and keep being able to have time to make relationships.
Yeah, it's a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
marathon to like to make this it's a life choice, really. It's a life choice
It's a
to be an actor.
lifestyle.
It's a
yes,
lifestyle,
it is a
basically.
life choice.
Because you're gonna there it's not gonna be uphill and sorry, going straight up all the time. There's gonna
No.
be a lot of struggles and it's yeah.
And even when you have like great success,
Mhm.
then the next year or the next 2 years, you might not book anything, which is fine. That's just how the industry is. That's just how, like, even the biggest actors in the world, like, they're not constantly working. It's a job where there's a lot of waiting around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay, so maybe we'll switch gears a little bit because talking about like the emotional weight of like being an actor and how it is being in a relationship with another actor and how you guys like met and how like that dynamic is of like being two creatives together.
it's so funny because we were talking about this last night that I was like, okay, I know they want to talk about like our relationship, and I was like, I don't know if we know anything else because we met so young. Like we started dating like first year of CEGEP at we went to Dawson for the theater program. We started dating like literally the first semester. We were 17. Like my only other like experience with like a boyfriend was like in high school, which I didn't even know I wanted to be an actor really at that point.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's been interesting to like grow as actors together and to
Absolutely.
always have somebody. We're so lucky that like I hear about people, people that don't like self tapes because they have to, call their, 10 people they usually call to come help them and they feel bad. Like we never feel bad asking the other person to help us with a self tape, even if it's 6 in the morning,
Mhm.
10 p.m. at night, midnight, whatever it is. Like we
Yeah.
both understand that that's what you have to do,
Mhm.
and we do it for each other.
Yeah. Cuz yeah, we've been together for 12 years now. So we've
Wow.
been together for a while. And there's like the whole like auditioning and having a reader at all times, which is great. This like takes the pressure off, but also it's the idea that you're going through this very difficult journey with someone who understands completely. And we're really lucky that we had that for each other because not everyone gets that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like I guess for example, if like
Mhm.
I don't know, you had a date night planned, but then one of us gets an audition,
Yeah,
the
it's
other
like, well,
person's like, oh yeah, okay, we're not going. But if I guess you were dating someone who wasn't an actor, they would be like, but we had these plans, and we're like, oh no, you have like 10 pages of like lines to learn. Yeah, no, like
yeah.
we'll do that another time. Like we're very understanding of that. Or if it's like, oh, you have to be like on set on my birthday, yeah, like go be on set on my birthday. Like it's fine. Like I'll have another birthday, but you like being on set, it's like, you know what I mean? Like where I think
Yeah.
like other people who aren't actors might not be so understanding of those things because like obviously I get it. If I wasn't an actor, I'd be like, why aren't you making time for me? And like, why aren't you like prioritizing our relationship? It's just hard because acting's like this relationship that like comes and goes and like leaves you hanging and then like, pulls you in and like you're kind of like at its beck and call whenever it comes. And so you kind of need someone to be understanding to that.
Right. So you just both completely understand what each
Yeah.
other is going.
Yeah. And I think like I completely understand you. I completely trust you. Like, so when we're doing if I'm doing an audition, like I trust like what you're telling me completely. And like you come up with ideas to help make it better because you're like an outside point of view. And I think it does help us like improve our auditions as well. Whereas now, like, I don't know if I could do a self tape with somebody else. Like, I should try it just to do it. But like, I don't know. I just feel like we have this dynamic where like
Julia also doesn't have to deal with any of the technical stuff of an audition.
Oh,
because we like
that is amazing.
It's so
That's
easy for
great.
me to, I've been, it's so easy for me to use our cameras and lights and mics. And so
But I
it's
guess we
just,
also direct each other
yes, yeah.
in it as well,
Yeah.
which is fun.
Like the creative side of
Yeah, like of
auditions,
having
yeah.
another point of view
Mhm.
or
It's that I think it's, the biggest thing is that support system basically.
Yeah.
Because like we said, this is like a life's journey to commit yourself to being an actor, and you need someone who's gonna really support that. And we have that for each other.
I wanted to talk about your TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you start exactly?
TikTok or like social media?
what's your origin story?
Yeah.
'Cause
Because I feel like you did like YouTube, no? Like you were doing like
Yes.
tutorials and stuff.
Yeah, so I started 2 years ago when the pandemic started, really.
Yeah.
I started making YouTube videos about acting. So how to set up your self tapes, how to light your self tapes, just everything actor, a lot of like the technical stuff about acting, but sometimes even
Yeah.
just, what it is, the basics of like how to get an agent, stuff like that. And I did that for a whole year. And I realized it's very niche. Very niche topic. There's only there's only so many people that want to go, watch those videos. But I've always had this urge to make skits and make comedy videos, and I was really kind of scared to do it because I didn't know if I would be funny enough, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I slowly started making skits, and then putting it on Reels. I wasn't even on TikTok at that time, and then finally I started putting it on TikTok about 6 months ago. I started posting
That's
videos.
it.
Yeah, that's it. 6 months
Wow.
ago, I started posting on TikTok, and very regularly. Like, I'm very consistent with it,
Yeah.
and I just kept going, and I followed what people wanted to watch, which
Is him and Wigs.
me and Wigs, me and Wigs being super silly. Like, my videos are over the top. That's the whole point of them. They're not supposed, they're over the top. They're me being silly. They're me playing boyfriend and girlfriend, me playing, dad and daughter. Like, it's just me having fun. And people really reacted to it. And so I just kept going and leaned into that. And, here we are.
Where did you get the inspiration for the characters?
Oh, I don't know. But you know what? A lot of it comes from music, listening to sounds on TikTok. Because for those who don't know, like people make sounds on TikTok, and you take those sounds and you make videos from it, or with trends, stuff like that. Exactly.
I often find him like just sitting around our apartment, just like going through TikTok, like just like, and like, and then a sound will come up and he'll be like, yes, and immediately have an idea.
Yeah, I have to be on TikTok a lot because of it. Just it helps inspire the ideas.
For sure.
But, the more you do it, the more that's a muscle as well. The creative muscles of making videos. It's hard to consistently come up with ideas to post. Like, I post 3 to 4 times a week.
Wow.
You need to, but the more you use that muscle, the easier it gets. Like, ideas come to me a lot easier now than they did at first. When I first started, I didn't know how I was going to come up with ideas every week. I'm like, I don't know. What am I going to do? But the more you do it, the easier it comes. Yeah.
And then do you it's like you're doing comedy on it. The roles that you were auditioning for, like, is it like you don't do comedy? So this is like, so then
every
once in a while, a comedy audition comes in, but I I mostly audition for very dramatic things. I'm always like
Yeah.
crying.
Yeah.
I'm always crying in auditions.
Wow.
Because in Toronto too, like if it's a comedic show, like let's say like What We Do in the Shadows and stuff like that, the majority of the actors that are auditioning for that are like Second City actors, or
Improv
like
actors.
improv actors, sketch
Right.
comedy. Like they
Yep.
bring in like very like specific comedy people
Yeah.
for that, and like you've done improv, but I
Mhm.
feel like maybe a lot of casting directors maybe don't know.
No, they don't know because
Right.
They
I'm
don't know you're funny, or
no,
that you do
that's
improv,
it.
or
A
that.
lot of the things I'm auditioning for are very dramatic, and that was another reason. Like, so why I got into making content and being on
Yeah.
TikTok was like just to have a creative outlet and just to feel like I have some sort of control over my career, because there's no control in the acting industry.
Yeah.
It's very like
Mhm.
you're at the helm of other people a lot of the time. And for me was, well, if I can, I love telling stories. I'm an editor, I am a director, I'm a producer, I do all these things. I have a very, I guess I have a lot of the skill sets you need to be a TikToker. So it came
Mhm.
very naturally to me. And I felt like if I could build a following, if I could tell stories, if I can make people laugh, that it can only benefit my acting career.
Yeah.
And then show my comedic side. And maybe, who knows down the line, maybe someone sees it and wants to give me a part in a comedic movie or TV show or whatever it is. It's a possibility because I'm showing that side of myself.
For sure. Has anything happened unexpectedly yet? Or I
Like
mean,
acting wise.
yeah. Or even other, like in terms of like brands or whatever else
Yes.
TikTok can do.
Yes, I've just got my first brand deal actually.
I wasn't sure if you were allowed to say.
Amazing.
Okay, congratulations. That's very, very
Well,
exciting.
that could sustain your acting.
Yeah, yes. I'm realizing now, like, whoa, there's money in this.
It's our master
Serious.
plan that
Yeah.
he's gonna get lots of brand deals, and then he's gonna hire me.
Yeah.
I'm expensive though. I've told him that.
Right.
So he's gonna hire me to do like the admin, like emails and stuff like that, and then that's
Yeah.
Or just get you some wigs too, and you'll just
There we go.
also
Yeah.
I don't know.
be
Savannah,
a
I don't know
guest
if I have
star
that
once in a
drive. He has a drive, and he's like, I
Okay.
don't. I told him this week, like, I'm like, I don't know anybody that has a drive like you for this kind of stuff. And he's like, I don't even feel like I have a drive. And I'm like, you don't have to make these videos. And I see you, I'm like working on my computer, and like 3 to 4 times a week, he's like setting up his stuff and like putting on the wig. And I'm like, I do not have that drive. But yeah, so if he maybe asked me to be in something, I and gave me, a schedule.
or maybe no lines though. You'd have
Yeah.
to background to start, and then work your way. Yeah.
I am in the background of one of his videos.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm working, and he's like, it's just like every time he films a TikTok, I'm in the background just like doing my day job. So it was just kind of a showing that him going crazy doing TikToks and me just like doing my
That's so funny.
It's
But yeah,
so crazy, but it's on it. Like, to me, it's so crazy how like powerful it is. Like, and it seems so like all the whole tech side comes easy to you. So for you, it's like not a big deal, but like, so then you're just having fun and being consistent with it, putting it out there. And then like with
That's it. It's all about for me.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the skill sets I've built over the years, because I've been a video editor for 5-6 years now. And I've really, I didn't go to school for that. I just taught myself and
Wow.
YouTube. And now I'm editing, TV commercials, and I'm editing, for marketing companies. And so just having like knowing how to do that was never a hurdle for me. I just like,
Mhm.
I can do it. It's just like, what do I want to do? It's just more of my imagination, right?
Yeah.
But like just with brand deals and stuff, I'm only really realizing now that, wow, this can really like change your life, and this can bring in a lot of income. But I was really doing it for my acting career more than I was doing
Yeah.
it for money. Like I was never really thinking of like, oh, that's why I'm doing it, right?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, were you just trying different things to see what was working, right?
Yes,
Like you
yes,
did,
at
you were
first.
doing different things, and then TikTok came around. You're like, okay, I'll try this, and then all of a sudden, it's kind of exploding, like and things are happening, and I think. Do you think it's better to go with no intention before, or do you think go with an intent? Like you had an aim, was okay. I'm gonna create content and try to make people laugh and see if it works and see if things build. Like before, you said you were doing how-to acting tips and stuff like that, and there was a niche for it, and I'm sure people loved it, but it didn't grow maybe the way. So you're now doing this instead,
Yeah.
and it like exploded. So it's
I think there's also like I love creating content. Like
right.
I love making videos, and I have before this, but I was making short films and web series.
Yeah.
And I think that what I love about social media, or let's say specifically TikTok, is it doesn't drag on for a month. It doesn't drag on for two months or whatever it is. It's I have an idea, I shoot it, I edit it. It happens in like a day. Like it's done.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
love that it can be messy, and I love that because in my editing, in my freelance editing, everything needs to be perfect. These are like TV commercials that are going on social media and on TV. So it's allowed to be messy. So I think I like that aspect of it. But yeah, for me, it was really just like I love making videos. I really do.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for this amazing talk. We have so much information. Yeah, no, it was great. We learned so much. Montreal, Toronto, relationships, acting. I mean, there's tons. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks for having
you.
us. Yeah.
So for today's takeaways, 1, nothing gets easier. 2, give yourself grace. 3, not everything is going to be perfect. And 4, creating your own content will give you control over your craft. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.